All right, welcome to Caregiving Cafe today. And we are meeting on Zoom today and welcoming everybody. And we will collect some nuggets of wisdom and tips and strategies that we would want to share with other caregivers, especially when they're just starting out on this adventure, and or also things that you wish you had known early on. So would anybody like to start that conversation? Well, I will then, because oh yeah, go ahead. Chantalyn, was that you?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, go for it.
This is gonna be brief, be brief. So I think anybody who's starting out, be willing to learn and have an open mind. Take notes if you don't understand, ask questions again. If they speaking too slow, wait a minute, let me get a pen and paper. Let me write down what you're saying. Any questions or any response that you need to ask. No questions is dumb. And just be calm in this journey. And then you'll remember that you have a support team.
Excellent. Ask questions. And you mentioned all of those are super important. Be willing to learn, because it's a totally different life that you're entering, starting, and one we haven't done before. So learning is necessary, and so is um, adapting and adjusting, right? But we need to know how. So it all goes back to learning, but the willingness to learn. No, I've always done it this way. A lot of times we hear that from the care receiver. It's always been like this. And but now it needs to be different, so anyway, that's excellent. Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add? I know we all know a lot of things. What do you wish you had known when you started out? I know we have a lot in our mind. How about resources? Do you know where to go? Did you always know where to go at the beginning? How did you find out about resources? Right. So Sheila, you're nodding over there.
Yeah.
You
So
you had
in responding to the question, there were so many things going through my mind, and so resources, yes, I had actually a very difficult time finding. And this is going to sound strange because I'm in a support group, but I had a very difficult time finding a support group. I would look on the national this is for Alzheimer's caregiving support. And I kept going to the national site, and I was coming up without. And then somehow I happened onto like the texas.gov, and
really.
voila.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's not really a tip so much as maybe it is a tip for people who live in Texas. I think that the texas.gov site is well updated, I want to say, for local chapters and local resources.
Excellent.
And that, because having the resources is information is power.
Mhm,
And yeah.
mhm.
And I guess one of the tips, like a person in my situation, I was primary caregiver for my mother, who passed away 5 years ago.
Mm.
And I think maybe, in a situation, being a sibling, a very close sibling, this is my only sibling and my only family member my only original family member who's living, is be as informed as possible, as early as possible. Don't wait. uh, things I mean, there are some things I wish I had known that I couldn't have known, but
Right.
I do wish I had been more informed much earlier.
Yes. Now, what would have been, in your opinion, a way that you would have liked to have received information about resources? Because that's a huge problem. It's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for resources. I had to go look
Mhm.
for them. I didn't know where to start. So what, and anybody can answer, what do you think would be a great place? When do you think you wish you had found out about resources? There's no
Well,
right or wrong. It's whatever.
okay. I almost wish. Okay, so I was looking. I almost. I think there's still. I mean, there's a huge stigma, right? Okay, so I almost wish there was like you could go on a meetup group and just meet other caregivers who like have resources. I mean, even something like that, where it, I just wish it was just more accessible.
Mhm.
Like there are so many other things that are accessible, like, meditation resources, like that's accessible. But
I mean, all those things,
everything,
okay, they work for a lot of people, but um, I agree. It's the awareness of those resources that has
yeah.
always been a problem. For me, um, I wish that at the doctor's office where you're given a diagnosis, that's where you would find information about resources, where to go, who you ask. Not a ton of brochures that say senior living, home care, and all the, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
It's just like one card, like I can think of the perfect solution, can't you, Dura? A Caregiving Cafe rack card that we created that is a starting point where you can call any, it's a very short list. It's just one card like this,
Mhm.
that has resources where anybody can call, any family can call, and they will be directed to the appropriate, whatever you need. They can, even if you don't know what you need, because a lot of times we don't, especially at the beginning, they will
Mhm.
guide us. They have social workers and trained personnel. They know what to ask and where to direct you. I mean, does everybody think that that would be helpful? Because I really wish, at my doctor, I mean, at my doctors, but also my husband's doctors, that's where diagnosis is made, or even if it's not, oh, well, we don't know what it is, but, for support, so we're working on that. So yeah, so I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's part of the advocacy thing that I'm working on, and Dura is as well, to publicize those resources. But just FYI, alc.org has it should have information about support groups, but so does Age of Central TX, Age of Central Texas. I will, of course, you're in one now, but it's okay to visit different ones, because, like Darlene, you get different things from different groups, and then you meet more people, and you can learn different things. But also txalz.org, that's Alzheimer's Texas.
That was the one that I was successful at. I was not successful with those other two.
Yeah, okay. So that's my go-to
Yeah.
in this area, because they're local and they'll tell you. So it's Alzheimer's Texas. They will yeah, and I'm listed there, and so are many others that are very good, so check them out. So yeah, so that is one thing. And I'm glad that you sought a support group, because a lot of people, including myself, I don't need a support group, so, but I created mine. So, because I did need it, so anyway, that's great. Anybody else have, thank you, Sheila. Anybody else?
For me, and this is not meant to be an advertisement for myself as to something that I'm going to start doing, but I'm mentioning it because I'm starting to do it out of a need that I experienced through taking care of my mom. And I think that that is having a caregiver slash patient advocate, which is a company that I'm working on starting right now for myself. I'm always going to continue to be in hospice, but what I realized is I'm in healthcare. Thank God I happen to know what I know because it's what I do for a living. But nobody took the time, from the hospital case managers to the doctors to the nurse case managers to the skilled nursing facilities to the private caregivers. Nobody took time to help me understand why we were being referred somewhere, or what my options would be if we didn't want to go that route, or really set me up with successful appointments to figure out the next step. Why do we take these next steps? Where do you need it? What kind of care is there if you don't want to go the skilled nursing route? And I find myself constantly for that year fighting on behalf of my mom, just to get information. Like, we don't want to go to skilled nursing. What are our options? Well, that is your option. You don't have a choice. You have to go to skilled nursing. Well, okay, so she discharges to skilled nursing, then what? You know, the then what's that people don't answer. And so what I found is, it's part of it is because they're so busy that they don't want to take the time to share with you the resources, because then they have to explain the resources.
Yeah.
The other part is they truly don't know. There's such a break in the healthcare system that everybody just knows their little box, and all they know to do is tell you, go to the other box and find out who in that box can talk to you about that box. So nobody's taking the time to cross over and have a really firm understanding or grasp of what the healthcare system looks like and what your options are, and then walk you through it. And so for me, that was a personal need that by the grace of God, it happens to be what I do. I was able to advocate for my mom and get her the right kind of care, but it was a full-time job in itself, and it was very stressful. So I am starting within the next couple months my own advocacy group. I'm going to call it Hopeful Hearts. I believe, I haven't looked up the name yet, but it is where I'm advocating on behalf of caregivers, which then helps the patient. But Lynn and I talked about this yesterday. One thing we never hear about is people saying, hey, well, we want to support the caregiver. Well, the caregiver is the one taking care of the patient. So if you take care of the caregiver and you educate them and you guide them through it, and you take stuff off their plate by either going with them to the doctor's appointments or going to the appointments, stuff like that, you can really have somebody who's managing your personal care and taking care of your loved one and giving you the break that you need. And so I think that's important, and it's something that we don't have right now. It's really completely lacking in the healthcare industry. There's a lot of stuff out there for placement. There's a lot of stuff out there for those things, but not to help you understand your options.
That's very well said, Dora. And I'm so glad that you're doing this, because I think we're going to keep you busy. You know, it's sorely needed, you know, and so I encourage anybody who needs, you know, assistance or guidance in that area to just please contact Dura. Her number is always included in my emails. But if anybody,
I'll put it in the chat also.
okay, thank you. And Sarah had put some things in the chat. Caregiving is more organized and provided by the government in Europe. Yes, it is. We experienced, we lived in England for about 5 years in the 90s, the NHS. It was great. A lot of people complain about it, but I thought, oh my gosh. So, I mean, different catchment areas have different qualities, just like some doctors are great, some aren't, right? So we were very fortunate, and our care was excellent. We didn't need anything huge, but it was a great experience. And a lot of things were covered. And, you know, yes, taxes are very high in England, but they do your taxes for you. We don't have to do taxes. It's all done for us, you know. So, but that was great. So France is supposed to have excellent healthcare system as well, Canada. So I thought some years ago, why don't we look at what works well around the world and see how we can make it fit into our society, our systems, you know. But anyway, they just aren't listening. So I don't know why. But anyway, but it's also Sarah also said she shared caregiving resources with her mother's driver from Chariot, which is kind of like Drive a Senior. They provide free rides to seniors. And oh, he's also caregiving for his wife. So I hope he joins us at Caregiving Cafe, you know. So, but anyway, the other one sounds a little bit personal. So I don't really want it recorded. So anyway, those are other ideas. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing that. So how about Darlene, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think, I've been in another support group for 40 years, and unfortunately, I don't know what it is. I mean, and I was also a nurse for 43 years, and I don't know what it is about the medical system that they're not really big into, referring people to support groups, but like anyone, I need to talk to my doctor about this because she's a holistic type physician, and I really need to talk to her about the fact that, like if you have a patient who someone is their caregiver, that person really needs to be very highly encouraged, maybe even pushed a little bit, maybe, just really to get them into support groups because they really, really do work.
Mhm.
They really do work.
They do.
And,
And I would add to that that just because one isn't quite the right fit doesn't mean that another one might not be the right fit. You know, it's so give it a try. It's kind of like going into a group of people and you'll click with some, but maybe not so much with others, you know? So give it a
yeah,
try.
I went to a different caregiver support group for a couple of times and it was on Zoom and I probably didn't give it enough time to see if it clicked, but yeah, that's why I just think it's so important that we show up and I feel bad that I've missed the last 2 times, but hopefully I'll remember. I've got to put a note on my mirror or something Thursdays to come
Yeah,
to the
well,
I know this works for me too. It
yes.
does
Well,
help.
thank you for that. And please don't feel bad. But we just love to see you, however. So you can put it on your calendar, whether it's on paper, I have paper and on my phone. It's the second and fourth Thursdays, not every other Thursday, second and fourth Thursday, 10 to 12. And if you put it in, then it'll always be there. Or if you have a paper calendar, I put it in and it's orange. You know, I color code my calendar, my paper calendar. So like that
Cool.
best. And everything just stands out, you know. So my fun things are pink, you know, so so you can make it whatever you need it to be. But I do, if you I've been sending out emails. That's a way that's easiest for me to communicate, but a lot of people don't really check their email regularly. There's just no time or whatever, for whatever reason. That's okay. But then I'm not reaching you, you know? So, and we're caregivers. I get it. We're all over the place, you know? And sometimes I don't want to see anything because there might be another need waiting for me. I said, no, don't look at it. Don't look at it. Look at it later. You know, so whatever works for you. All right.
Put a
So
little note on your refrigerator with the magnet and because put it
Yeah.
somewhere where you're always going to see it,
yeah,
and then it's a reminder. We all go to the refrigerator first thing in the morning.
yeah. Or in the
Well,
mirror.
yeah, and unfortunately Thursdays is kind of my day off day, and it's like the day that I have the least amount of things going on. So it's like, oh, the day's free. I don't have anything to do. So anyway, but yeah.
Well, okay. So let me just offer, and then we'll move on to other suggestions. Is we do meet on the first Wednesday. I know if this is your least busy day, but the first Wednesday of the month, it's the same link. We also meet then. Okay. So If that works better for anybody, you're welcome to join us wherever, it doesn't matter. No, so, but it's the same link, 10 to 12 on the first Wednesday. All right. So, okay, Monica, would you like to share some wisdom? Something you learned, something you wish you had known?
Yeah. Um, I wish I would have really had a better handle on my emotions and that I prioritized my own care. I know people always say, like, when you're on an airplane and the mask comes down, you always put yours on first. And, that analogy is huge. How important it is. Because I just feel like, only you know yourself, and not to be worried at all about, how it might look from the outside, because folks don't really understand the whole picture.
Mhm.
And also, I had a lot of family members that were trying to be helpful that were creating a lot of stress for me. They had lots of opinions and suggestions, but not a lot of commitment to actually do anything. They were very vocal about what I should be doing, and just learning how to handle that with grace. I think those were things in retrospect that I would have tried to kind of sort out. And also, trusting the professionals that were taking care of my mom, or have been, because a lot of times I would react very emotionally to information from her, and she has never been a good source of information. But I think, just the heightened anxiety about the situation resulted in me not thinking very clearly. So, I'm 59. So I would say for 57 years of my life, I've never really trusted what she said. And I don't know why 2 years ago I started putting a lot of stock into it. But, a lot of times I would kind of go off on, whether it was the director of the facility she was living in, or the medical director, or a doctor. I wouldn't say go off, but in retrospect, I probably could have been a lot more calm and rational.
Mhm.
So I guess that's it. Like, coming up with ways to focus on facts,
Mhm.
like putting cameras in her room. That was like really helpful, and just kind of taking a gander at the cameras in the morning, before I talked to her. So I would know what was really going on and not what she was saying. So that was big for me personally. And also, just focusing on being an advocate, that role, versus trying to manage her emotions. And as time goes on, I've tried to tap into some resources for the emotional aspect for her, and I haven't had a lot of luck with that, due to her religion. Um, so that's been a little disappointing for me. My mom is Jewish, and I've reached out to that community to try to get her some support, and it just has gone nowhere. And I've invested, whatever time I invested in it, I feel like I threw away because I got nowhere.
Well,
But
now, yeah, okay, no, it's interesting. My husband's Jewish, but he's not
Mhm.
religious. He's very scientific. So uh, it is a different mindset,
Yeah.
the approach, but fortunately it has not interfered because I'm Catholic.
Mhm.
And but maybe we'll have to talk about that sometime, and get his insights to see. But it also depends on what what her issues are, what she's having a hard time with, because
Yeah.
Sarah has said many times, a lot of these, like, whether it's lashing out or resentment or things like that, oftentimes, or overwhelm, they stem from fear of something. And we have to investigate, dig, what is she afraid of? Was there a traumatic event in the past that triggered a memory and anxiety? Those things. It could be that she's afraid of her own future. It could be that she doesn't like what's happened to her. And because her abilities and world maybe is a little bit more limited, or greatly more limited than it was before. And I know I have heard from friends who said, um, who was it who said, oh yeah, aging is cool. And I got a response, because that's the name of that company who does exercises and, all that stuff for generally healthy seniors, but also seniors with cognitive impairments or physical impairments. And the response that I get, okay, I remember who it was that I got from the lady who is a senior. She said, no, it's not. But we adapt,
Yeah.
thought, okay, because some of those things that happen as we age, it's, they
Yeah.
kind of limit.
Well, yeah, the tough part with my mom is, she's had all these personality issues her whole life. So, my husband and I, we talk a lot about what we will give her a pass on, and what it's very hard to, because, it could reinforce this really bad behavior that she has if we respond to certain things with her. So it's a little complicated, but I think, limiting our interaction. I did speak with my mom's therapist, which was really helpful, who told me I was visiting her too much and didn't need to talk to her every day. So that was really helpful. And maybe, that's a lesson, kind of relying on information from other people who see, your loved one from maybe a little bit more objective perspective. My mom's in assisted living, and, the folks that live there and work there give me feedback, and it's totally contrary to what my mom says. And, I've learned that I need to trust other people.
Yeah, up to a point. Julia, do you add anything to that?
Just not from a professional perspective, from a daughter perspective, it is so hard, isn't it, to listen and do objectively when it's your own mom. I mean, or your own parent. When I was taking care of my mom, as much as I know what I know, I had my mom on 3 hospices, and then the first one told me, you just don't understand the hospice philosophy. That's what I do for a living. And I do understand it, but you know what? They were right, because when it came to my mom, I was pulling her off. I was taking her back to the hospital. I was doing all the things that I know I had hospice in place to not do, but I just couldn't step back and put on my logical
Mhm.
brain, because had my daughter brain, and it is so no, I don't have anything to add to that, other than I get it. Like it doesn't matter how educated you are in certain things, how much you know about healthcare or anything else. When you're in the midst of it and it's somebody you love, it's really hard to step back and let those who are looking at it from a non-emotional perspective give you feedback.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's where, getting back to what I had mentioned about not letting the emotions take over and just focusing on facts.
Mhm.
And, I'm fortunate that I have good friends, and my husband and my daughter, who are very rational. And when I am getting a little bit wrapped up with the emotions, they'll always kind of say, hey, let's kind of think through this. Let's just kind of lay out the facts. and focus on that. And, you know, almost think about it from the perspective that, you know, you're taking care of your neighbor and it's not your mom. And for me, it's hard because I'm very emotional about everybody. You know, I don't ever want to see anybody being taken advantage, wrong, suffering, hurt. You know, I kind of feel those emotions almost the same way about a stranger. So that's what's been my personal challenge.
It's empathy.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. So, but I've learned a lot, and I realize how much better off I am prioritizing myself, because I was getting really, really sick. I had a lot of my own personal health issues. And, you know, my biggest one, which was pretty debilitating, now that I'm taking care of it, I realize that the tension and the stress and the anxiety, you know, how much that contributed to my own health issues.
Mm.
And just being able to rationally say, like, I want to be a strong, healthy person so that I can be here for my mom.
Mhm.
You know, that is giving me the ability to care for her in the best way, instead of kind of waking up in the morning and just running and doing stuff for her, you know, at the cost of my own, you know, health.
Yeah. So it's good to find a balance. Not always easy, but at least if we keep looking, we'll find one. I think also it's especially with senior living communities, or even if at home, sometimes what they say is not necessarily factual.
Yeah.
It's what they remember or what they imagine. It's just the situation. So because that's why the cameras are very helpful, because you really see what's going on. Or I know that back in the day, uh, well, this mother had Alzheimer's, and said, you never come visit me. Gosh, it's been months, and I was just here yesterday.
Yeah.
And he would tell the sisters. I said, but it doesn't, it didn't matter. They just remember in the moment, and so sometimes you need to take what they say with a grain of salt. you
Yeah.
know Now if you start noticing something physical, or like bruises or scratches or a bump in the head, that kind of thing, then I would look into it a little bit further and not dismiss it quite so quickly, because we have, unfortunately, Dora and I have come across situations where that was the case. And oh my goodness. So but anyway, oftentimes, sometimes their world is embellished. I have to excuse myself. Dora, can you please take over and we can start the sharing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to add to that what Lynn was saying is, when she says we've experienced that personally. Yeah, I had to pull my mom out of a place due to abuse and neglect. So while you have to take it with a grain of salt, you also do have to look for those signs and make sure that what they're saying, verify, trust, but verify, kind of thing. So does anybody else want to add anything else? Or yeah, go ahead, Sheila.
Well, yeah, I'm interested in this. I is it Monica? Because I just see Zoom user and
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, it is Monica.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I very much relate to what you're saying about the I know that, a lot of things that my brother will convey to me, some are just in his mind, and some are concerning that I wish to verify. And so my question is, how do you verify? How, particularly because I'm not in the same town, and right now I go every other weekend, but I won't be able to do that when I go back